folks, welcome back to another Token Punch Lunch. We have a lot of good segments lined up for you today, and we're going to get to that in just a few moments. We have just returned from Essen, and it's Halloween, so I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to see some Halloween-themed segments here coming up in just a few moments. I myself have taken the Essen route, and I'm talking about 5 games that I wasn't able to play, but I wanted to at Essen. So you can fast forward to that if you want to, or just skip it, you know, whatever you want to do. But anyway, I do have a lot of good segments up and lined up for you. So let's go ahead and get to it, because I know that's what you're here for. So let's hit the table running.
This is Ambie from Boardgame Blitz, and last time on Token Punch Lunch, I talked about escape room or puzzle type board games. And Martha Wrote commented, "I love puzzle and escape room games. Always get the next exit game as soon as I can. As I live in Germany, I can get it fortunately earlier than the English-speaking people." So luckily there are so many different escape rooms coming out now that you don't really have to keep up with the ones that just came out, so I'm totally not jealous of you at all, Martha. Anyway, today's Halloween, and I wanted to dress up in costume, but I'm filming this before Halloween, so my costume's not done yet. Sorry. But happy Halloween! And since it's Halloween and people like dressing up in costume, I wanted to talk about board games where you not dress up as a character, but you play as a character, or like games where you can role play. There are a couple of board games I've been playing recently that remind me of role-playing games. There's Legacy of Dragonholt and Gloomhaven. Legacy of Dragonholt is a game that I've been playing solo. It's a choose-your-own-adventure storytelling game where you create a character and then you do different things, you read through the story, and you make choices based on your character. And then depending on what choices you make, you go to a different passage in the book. So there's a bunch of books and a bunch of different passages in each book. So you're going through this whole story. And I really like it. It reminds me of a role-playing game because I have my character and I get to make choices based on my character. But there's no dungeon master and the story's all there, so I can just go through it when I want. Gloomhaven is a cooperative game that I've been playing with 4 players. And in Gloomhaven, there's a huge campaign with a bunch of different scenarios. And in each scenario, each person is a different character, and there's a board with monster tokens, and you're going around killing monsters, but you're playing cards to do it. There's a lot of strategy in what cards you play, and there's actually no dice, it's just cards for doing damage to the monsters. So there's a lot of strategy, and the mechanisms are really interesting. But it also feels a lot like a role-playing game to me, because we all have different characters with different abilities, and our cards are different. And we also have backstories that I've read, and depending on what characters we are, we try to do different types of things. Like, for example, both me and one other player both like money a lot, and we just try to get all the money, even when other people are fighting the bad guys. So it's kind of fun just getting into character in Gloomhaven. But a game doesn't have to be like a role-playing game for you to be able to get into character. One game I used to play a lot is Arkham Horror, which is a cooperative board game where you're trying to save the world from an old one, like Cthulhu or another monster from Lovecraft mythos. You don't have to get into character to play this game, but each person is a different character with different special abilities. And there's a backstory flavor text on the character card. So sometimes when we played, we would make decisions based on what our character was, or make up a story of why we would be doing what we were doing, because that's what our character is like. So it can be fun getting into character playing the game, even if the game doesn't have anything that requires you to be in character. Obviously, there are also a lot of games where there aren't any characters, so you can't get into character for them. But for the ones that do have characters, do you like getting into character when you're playing a board game? Do you think it adds to the experience, or do you not like doing that? Or have you ever dressed up as a board game character for Halloween? Let me know in the comments.
Hey everybody, it's Jay, and it's time to talk about your Flair. On 15 Pieces of Flair, I'm going to show you all some ways to spruce up that game room. Now, my sister has been asking me to make her some Harry Potter Hogwarts battle for quite some time now, ever since she taught it to me at her house. And she specifically wanted the villain marker that you put on the locations. I'm not exactly sure what the token is called, but she wanted a large one, and I've been putting it off, and I figure since she supports me on Patreon now, that I should probably go ahead and make it for her. So, let's check it out. So for this project, you're going to need several different cuts of wood. The first one you're going to need is a 1x12 cut to 9 1/4 inches long. You're going to need a 1/4 inch by 1 inch piece of trim at least 36 inches long. You're going to need a 5.2 millimeter thick piece of plywood at least 8.5 inches by 10 inches. And you're going to need a 1x8 about 6 1/4 inches long. Now I'll be using the 9 1/4 inch tall hexagonal shelf for a template. Also, you're going to need a jigsaw, black and hammered silver spray paint, a power drill with a large drill bit, an electric hand sander, regular sandpaper, tape and paper for masking, wood glue, a hammer, finishing nails, some hanging hardware, and a miter saw. Alright, just go ahead and put on your safety glasses and leave them on throughout the whole process. Now to start, use your hexagon template to trace an outline on your 1x12 using the outside edge of the template. Using your jigsaw, go ahead and cut out that hex. And then you can go ahead and spray paint that black as well. Then using the inside edge of the template, outline the hex onto the 5.2 millimeter plywood. Cut that hex out with the jigsaw, then spray paint it thoroughly with the hammered silver. Set your miter saw to 120 degrees or 30 degrees like mine says. Then cut 6 sections of that 1/4 inch by 1 inch piece of trim as long as the outside edge of your template. Now then you can go ahead and spray paint all of those with the hammered silver. On your 1x8, go ahead and draw the skull from the token the best you can. By the time you get that all drawn out, you should be able to flip over your 6 sections and paint the back sides of them with the hammered silver. Using the jigsaw, carefully cut out the skull. To get out the eyes and the nose, use the large drill bit and drill several holes in. Then use your jigsaw to cut along the lines. Then use the electric sander and some elbow-powered sandpaper to smooth everything out. Try to get the edges nice and rounded with that electric sander. Use the skull to find an area on the silver hex to mark where the eyes and the nose holes are. Then mask the outside areas so only the eyes and nose hole area is exposed. Spray paint that exposed area black. Then spray paint the skull hammered silver and make sure to coat that thing nice and generously. Once all that is totally dry, you can wood glue the silver hex to the black hex, then glue the skull to the silver hex, being sure to get the eyes and nose holes right over that black area and centered. Once the glue is all dry, you can start attaching the small sections to the outside using a bead of glue, then 2 nails. Then find perfect center and attach your hanging hardware using nails that will go into every layer but not penetrate through the other side. Then I thought it was a little bit too bright, so I lightly spritzed some black over the whole thing to grunge it up. Boom! There you have it. A quick and easy way to add, well, maybe not quick and easy. I don't know if this project's really that hard. I bet if it was just me and I wasn't trying to film and all that stuff, it wouldn't be so bad, but I kept having to move the camera and the lights and the camera, the lights, come in here, measure, go out there. It probably gave me more of a headache than it probably would be normally for anybody just doing this in their basement or garage or whatever. But I like how it turned out. I think my sister's gonna love it. And if anybody has any suggestions on games or ideas you'd like me to make into some Flair, leave them in the comments below, or find me anywhere on social media. Don't forget, everybody, 15 pieces of Flair is the bare minimum. Some people choose to do more, and we encourage that. Have a happy Halloween, everybody.
Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today I'm going to bring you another episode of Solo-Thrash, Amerithrash gaming for those of us who like to game alone. In this episode of Solo-Thrash, I want to be talking about the perfect solo game to take with you anywhere, game books, specifically the graphic novel adventures published by Van Ryder Games. This box actually comes with 5 different games in it, each of which is shockingly different from the other games. Captive is the flagship title of the graphic novel adventure series, and it really plays like a choose-your-own-adventure game combined with a comic book. You are a father trying to find his kidnapped daughter in a creepy house, and you use numbers to navigate from panel to panel, which are also numbered, throughout this book. And so you are basically choosing which direction to go and reading a comic book at the same time, which is pretty cool. But each of the graphic novel adventures has its own flavor. For example, there's Loup-Garou, in which you find yourself transformed into a werewolf. This game has a full-on combat system and a skill tree. So if you want a combination of a comic book story and a game where you're actually choosing special abilities and progressing, as in an RPG, Loup-Garou may be for you. There's also Sherlock Holmes, in which you actually get to choose which people to investigate as you solve mysteries. There's Your Town, in which you actually build out your own town, which is really, really cool. And then there's also Tears of a Goddess, in which you are searching for lost artifacts, and you actually get to explore an entire city and actually choose which places to visit first, and choose what order you want to complete the game in. So I really like these game books because they really go to show you the potential that is in game books. I mean, you can go so much further beyond the typical sort of choose your own adventure, or, maybe keep track of a couple skills and roll a die. These games have a lot more flexibility than even I really realized. They're also super portable. I just kind of have one in my bag and will continue to do so until I've fully played through the entire series. But if you are interested in a solo game that you can take with you anywhere, and that is just a really cool experiment in combining books and games, then the graphic novel adventures may be for you. Happy gaming!
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Cardboard Herald's Rook and Record, where we pick the perfect and most subjective soundtrack for your favorite board games. And today, thanks to the special request by commenter Carl Robinson, we are tackling Abyss, this beautiful and frightening Catala and Chevalier joint, and we are bringing out the big guns, because the perfect soundtrack to listen to while playing this game is undoubtedly the amazing Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. 1973's Dark Side of the Moon is the critical and commercial peak of Pink Floyd's legendary career and often cited among the greatest albums of the last century. Swimmy and alien, it is a suffocating and mysterious pairing that goes perfect with Abyss. One of the great things about Abyss is its continuous rhythm. Each turn consists of one and only one of 3 individual primary actions, and whether it's the opportunity cost of what you leave behind, or it's whatever fantastical fish people come up at the auction, every opponent is invested and ready for their turn. This smooth and continuous rhythm works in sync with Darkside, which with little exception is more like one continuous song ebbing and flowing like the tides. Thematically, both the game and the album call to mind sinister, fractured fairy tales, unsettling alien landscapes as haunting as Waters' compositions, and yet bursting with color like Gilmour's stabbing guitars and striking vocals. Dude, start to finish, this album works perfect. It's striking, it's scary, and even at times it's humorously bureaucratic. And after all, even in the depths of the Abyss, everything always comes down to money. Without a doubt, the perfect album for you to listen to while playing Abyss. It's Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. Oh, also, I hear this game syncs up perfectly to Wizard of Oz. Alright, so that's it. Thank you everyone for watching the Cardboard Herald's Rook and Record. Thank you to Carl Robinson for requesting Abyss. Let us know what you think of our pick. Let us know what game you want us to Rook and Recordify next. And be sure to check out all the other good stuff we have going on at cardboardherald.com. Once again, thank you for watching, and I've been Jack for Rook and Record.
Hey folks, welcome back to a guest segment here on Token Punch Lunch. I didn't have anything to talk about for Accessorize, and nothing really falls into the category of just missed it. So this one's going to be a little bit of a different episode or segment where I'm going to talk about 5 games that I went and looked at, but I wasn't able to play while I was at Essen Spiel 2018. So these are not in any particular order, but these are 5 games that I looked at, I wanted to play, but I couldn't because their booth was just busy all the time. So here we go. First game I'd like to talk about is Lindisfarne. Now, Lindisfarne is a game about Vikings invading different areas in Europe, and you are basically rolling some dice and you're using the numbers on those dice to put out your tokens in certain areas, and you have gold cards where you're going to be taking over certain areas and hopefully scoring those gold cards for more points and all this kind of stuff. But I wanted to. This was on my top 10 anticipated games for Essen, but I just didn't get over there because they had a small booth, and every time I stopped by the booth, they had somebody already playing the game, so I wasn't able to sit down. A guy did explain it to me in a general way, so there is that. I'm looking forward to getting it to the table, but that is the first game that I wasn't able to play, but I really wanted to, Lindisfarne. The second one was actually my #1 anticipated game for Essen, and that is Battlestar Galactica Starship Battles. Now, I was able to procure a copy of this, so it is going to be hitting the table, but every time I went by their booth, it was being demoed, and it was a full table more often than not, so I wasn't able to play it there, but I have watched it played a couple times at Gen Con, watched it being played a couple times, and people were having a blast playing it as well, so I'm really looking forward to getting this one to the table. That is Battlestar Galactica Starship Battles. Another one I went by and looked at, but I wasn't able to play, is Star Scrappers Cave In. Now, this is a game that's basically themed around you have a crew of scrappers that you're landing on this planet or an asteroid or something to that effect, and you're trying to mine it for as many resources as you possibly can. You can hire new guys into your crew and all of this kind of stuff, and the artwork is really what pretty much pulled it in for me, and I also like the theme as well. So I went by, tried to play it a couple times, wasn't able to, did stand around and watch it being played, and I think it's going to be one that I'm going to enjoy, so I can't wait to get it to the table. Star Scrappers Cave In. Also went by PSC's booth at Essen to check out Lincoln. Now, this is a Civil War themed game where it's the North versus the South, but it's an epic Civil War game. It's not focusing on one specific battle or even a number of specific battles. It's taking the overarching war, as it were, the Civil War, and you're playing through that as well. Really enjoyed the way it looks. It is just a 2-player game, and I had Katie Adley. She was able to explain what was going on throughout the course of the game, so there is that. So I do have a little bit of a leg up on how the game plays, but it looks really fun, and it looks really thematic as well, as far as, waiting on trying to woo Europe to come to the South's aid, and the North is trying to, of course, make sure that doesn't happen. There's that part in it, and so there's a lot of cool stuff about it. I was leery going in, didn't make my top 10 list because of that apprehension, but I think this is probably going to be hitting the table here pretty quick, so hopefully we'll be able to do that. But that's Lincoln from PSC Games. And then finally, a game that I went by their booth. This is a game that I have touted a lot ever since Gen Con. We're really Essen last year, because Essen is the first time I was introduced to this game, and I was enamored with it. And after Gen Con, I was able to play it a couple times at Gen Con and really enjoyed it. That is Tsukuyumi Full Moon Down. Now, they had an expansion that they were demoing at Essen, and they were kind enough to give me one of the factions for that expansion, and this is the Knights of Valhalla. And so they gave me a choice, and of course I picked the Vikings. But this is an interesting looking faction. I'm going to give it a try. Hopefully we'll be able to get it to the table here pretty quick. And then I was also able to pick up another one called the Sentinels. Now, the Sentinels are, as you can see here, pandas, and so that looks really cool, and so I'm looking forward to giving that one a try as well, because pandas are cool, man. So anyway, that is Tsukuyumi Full Moon Down. Was Didn't get a chance to play it, but I did go by and check it out, and had a meeting with the designer, and so really enjoy that game, and I'm looking forward to what's coming up in the future. I can't really say much about it, but you guys need to keep your ears and eyes on Tsukuyomi Full Moon Down, because there's going to be a lot coming up in the future, and I think it's going to be really, really, really cool. So anyway, that's that. Let's get back to the rest of your lunch.
Almost a Gamer, and today I want to talk about an old game. I know, it's hard to believe with all the new games out there to try and to look forward to. Why would you talk about an old game? Well, I'll tell you. It's because old games are the ones that make us feel at home. And old games are the ones we played when we were kids, and they helped us bond with our family and our friends and the places where we grew up. So I think they're really important, and with all the games out there that are constantly demanding our attention, sometimes we forget about them and we forget to play them. Today I want to talk about Dutch Blitz.
All right.
Because Dutch Blitz is such a wonderful fun for young folks and old ones too. Why you should see the ones who plays, they get in such a stew. Earn to learn, exciting to play for 2, 3, or 4. For this is sure one such game you ain't gonna be no bore. So now sit down with your friend or kin and try this game to play. Just bet what you get started once, you'll play most the day.
Yay! Thank you! That was my grandpa. My grandpa is probably the Dutchiest person that I know. His parents, I believe, were Pennsylvania Dutch. I never knew them. I don't speak the language, but I still feel like I have a bit of a connection to the Pennsylvania Dutch because of where I grew up and just like being in the region where Dutch Blitz was often played. It was just one of those games that we played growing up. My husband played it when he was growing up, so we both have memories of that from our childhood.
Well, that's enough about the Dutch. Let's talk about the Blitz. Dutch Blitz is a 2 to 4 player card game for ages 8 and up. Each player has their own deck of cards, and each player's goal is to get their Blitz pile, which is made up of 10 cards, played before everybody else, all while accumulating as many points as possible on Dutch piles, which are piles made up of matching colors and are in the order of 1 through 10. They're played in a common area in the middle of the table. You can play as many cards from your deck as you wish, but all remaining cards in the Blitz pile counts as 2 points against you, so they are very important to get out. The first person to finish their Blitz pile yells Blitz and ends the round. The first person to get 75 points wins the game.
So I didn't go into full detail on how to play the game. I just wanted to give an overview, just to give you a taste of what it's like. If you are interested in learning to play, definitely search it, Google it. There's a lot of helpful videos on how to play the game. And I just want to say, like, Dutch Blitz is an old one. It's kind of cheesy, but it's so much fun. It really is a rush, kind of, because you're racing against other people. Something that you don't really get until you start playing is how much you have to concentrate and focus on what you're doing. And you only start to lose when you get distracted by racing other people. You really have to focus on those Blitz cards. If you're ever in the Pennsylvania area and you see it, it's super affordable. It would be a great souvenir to pick up, and know that it is a legit game. Leave some comments about games that are important to you because of your childhood or because of the region that you grew up in. I think it would be really interesting to hear about those old games. I hope everyone has a great day, and thank you so much for watching.
Well, hi everyone, I'm Doug Jr.
And I'm Doug the Third.
And we're from Doug and Doug Gaming. So today we're looking at a game that I really enjoy called Betrayal at House on the Hill. Now, this is being recorded just the week before Halloween, so this is a very thematically appropriate game for this time of year, as it involves a haunted house that you and your players are exploring. This game can actually play up to 6 people, so I think it's a great choice for game night.
Yeah.
In fact, you have to have at least 3,
Yeah.
so the 2 of us couldn't play this alone, so we're just kind of demonstrating here. But it is a tile laying game where you get to go in and build the house as you play, so it's different every time.
And the way that happens is that we all start on this one tile. It's the entrance hall, and there's always going to be open doors, and there's an upstairs. It's so simple. You walk through a door, and then you lay a tile based on what floor you're on. If you're on the ground level, you lay a ground tile. If you're on the upper level, you lay an upper. If you're on the basement, so on and so forth. It's very easy.
So it's truly different every time, and in each and every room there are different things that are going to be found. Some of the rooms have text on them which will tell you things that will happen, and they also, many of them have symbols. For instance, if you find this little swirly symbol, that is an event card. So you will take an event card, draw that, and do whatever it says. Also, if you walk into a room that has the cow skull or ox skull or whatever kind of skull this is, you will draw an item card. And then there are omen cards. Omen cards are triggered when you go into a room that has the crow silhouette. Now, the omen cards will be some good and some bad, but always interesting, and they're also very important because every time you get an omen card, after you do what it says, you have to make a haunt roll. Now, a haunt roll is when you roll a number of these dice, which only have 1s, 2s, and blanks on them. So these are not just regular D6s.
Yeah.
But when you roll the appropriate number of dice, if the numbers that total up from these dice is less than the number of omen cards that have been drawn in this game, then the haunt begins, and that's when things get interesting.
And when the haunt happens, that's when we bring in these 2 little books here. This is the Trader's Tome, and that is, which one is that? That's the
survival book.
Secrets of Survival.
Secrets of Survival.
The reason these play into the game is very interesting, and like he was saying, the whole game changes at this point. You pick up the Trader's Tome, and it is now your goal is to look into the book, find the room you're in, and whatever needs to be found in order to match a scenario in this book, and it's actually going to tell you some instructions on who the traitor is. Then, the person with this book actually leaves the room or the area where everyone's playing and has a new goal assigned on how he can win this game.
Some of these are very off the wall, and there's a lot of different scenarios, so you never know which one's going to come up. While the trader is off reading that and figuring out what his new objectives are going to be, the rest of the players will go through this book. They'll find the matching scenario, and they'll figure out what their objective is going to be and how they can win this game, if they can win this game now. And then everyone comes back together, and like I said, it's like you're playing another game now. You never know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating mechanic that really keeps this game interesting. Now, yes, there are a finite number of scenarios that you could eventually play through, but there are a bunch of them, and there's also an expansion available, The Widow's Walk, which will add another, I don't know how many, but another group of scenarios.
A good bit. And that's not, I mean, these have a ton of scenarios.
They do, there's quite a few.
So, yeah.
So, one of the reasons I really enjoy Betrayal at House on the Hill is because it kind of reminds me or brings me back to the days when I was a kid, and my favorite, by far, my favorite cartoon was Scooby-Doo. And you know, the gang would always go and they would explore haunted houses or the creepy carnival or the ghost ship or whatever, and they would explore and look for different things, and they would find ghosts, and they would find creepy items, and they would find clues ultimately, and solve the mystery. And this kind of reminds me of that, and really kind of gives me that same feeling. Yeah, it's very thematic.
And I was going to say, just about the feeling, earlier we were just talking about how my brother-in-law, he sometimes doesn't like to play this because it's kind of creepy sometimes.
Creeps him out.
But for this time of year especially, it's awesome. It's awesome all the time.
It is. It's a lot of fun. So if you've never played this, or maybe you haven't played it in a while, go check out Betrayal at House on the Hill. Take it to your gaming group. See if you can get some people together to play this. And I think you'll find that it's a fun time, again, especially for the theme. and just lose yourself in the fun of the game and in the theme of the game. And I think you'll really have a good time with your friends and your gaming partners for this. So, The Trail at House on the Hill, an awesome game night game. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode of A Fellowship of Meeples. We'll see you next week right here on Token Punch Lunch. For now, I'm Doug Jr.
And I'm Doug the Third.
Bye-bye.
Hey, welcome to Token Punch Lunch. My name is Bobby, and this is these totally geeky games where I make recommendations of games for those geeky friends of ours with interests outside of our hobby. Our hobby being tabletop board and card games, and the interest this week being DC Comics. That's right, all those heroes, Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Flash, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, and I'm just kidding. The interest this week being Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you have a friend that's really into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or if you yourself are really into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the game that I'd recommend for you today is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shadows of the Past. This is a really cool one versus all game where one person takes on the role of the villain and goes up against the 4 turtles that the other players control, and they utilize an action selection mechanic by rolling dice and doing the actions on those dice. And there's a really cool dice sharing mechanic where you could share the dice and the actions with your other turtle siblings. This is a game that's probably a step above a gateway level game, but if the more experienced player plays the role of the villain and lets the other players play the role of the turtles, I think everybody's bound to have a really great time. Anyway, my name is Bobby, and this has been these Totally Geeky Games on Token Punch Lunch. Bye! Have a safe Halloween.
Ninja Turtle style! What?
Hey everybody, happy Halloween. Today we're going to look at some of my scariest moments while playing board games. Let's get to it. That really scary moment in Codenames where the 8-ball clue, if someone touches that, you automatically lose and your partner looks like they're going to touch it. And it's really scary, but then they finally touch one of yours. Phew! That moment when someone is clumsy and you get so scared because their glass starts to tip and it's going to ruin your game and oh, but thankfully nothing's in there. So scary. That scary moment when someone gives you a mandatory quest in Lords of Waterdeep that you have to complete. Now it's the worst. When someone suggests anything with this name in the title. When you're not quite sure if you're going to play the right card in Hanabi in a row. Oh yes, but you do. Whew, scary. When it looked like someone's about to block you in Ticket to Ride, but then thankfully they're placing it somewhere else. Whew. When you're down to your last roll and coup and you're really afraid someone's going to call you out because you are totally bluffing. When you're down to one last outbreak before you lose the game in Pandemic and you can't flip Santiago and you're so nervous and whew, you don't flip it. When you really need to feed your people and you need to roll anything but a 1 to feed them and live, whew, and you don't get a 1 and you can feed and don't lose any points. When it looks like the sheriff is going to open your bag and you know you're lying, but and then they give your bag back to you and you get to keep your contraband, whew. When it looks like someone's going to take your worker placement spot that you really want, but then they go somewhere else. When you're really afraid that your friends know that you are the werewolf, but you're trying to hide, but then they call someone else out as a werewolf. Whew. Okay, everyone, those are my scary moments in board games. Maybe you've experienced some of those. Let me know some of your horror stories in the comments below. We'll see you next time. Have a happy Halloween.
Hi, welcome to Board Game Opinions. My name's Steve Rain.
I'm Jonathan Hicks.
And I'm Mark Windle. And for our flavour of the month this month, we are talking about Escape Room the Game, which I believe, with a slew of escape room games going out about now, I believe it's one of the original ones. And it comes with this snazzy little decoder box. Effectively, in each scenario, you go through and you solve a total of 3 different puzzles. You're trying to find 3 codes, but within those 3 codes, you're trying to solve lots of little different puzzles. And like a lot of the escape room games, you get like a top-down view of the room. Now, there's not enough detail for you to see here because you have to look really closely, but you get like a view of a room. So here we've just escaped from a laboratory, and we have to look through this in detailed pictures to find clues. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to find a 4-digit or a 4-lettered or a 4-shaped code to do with these keys. You get a stack of keys, and you can see that the shapes are different, but written on the keys there's different numbers. So this is a 6, this is a 5, this says B, this says C, this says 3 in Roman numerals, this says 10 in Roman numerals, and you're trying to find a 4-digit code to use on this decoder machine. What you do is you press start, and then as we're playing, we're trying to find codes. So Mark's found the first digit, he thinks it's this key, or we think it's this key, and what you do is you put the 4 keys in the box, and the box will tell you if you're right or not. Let's have a look. And we lose a minute. So you have to be, not fairly sure, but you have to be pretty certain. You can't just go around guessing, and the box will tell you if you're right or not. It's pretty sturdy, the keys are pretty nice, and what you're trying to do is find 3 codes. If that gave us a success sound, which I can't mime what that sounds like, but you then open part 2 or part 3, whichever part you want. You've got an hour to get out of each one, like a lot of these escape room games, but it does it in a slightly different way. What do we think, guys?
It's really nice, particularly considering it's the first escape room game. They've actually done a really good job. I think it stands up really well against things like Exit and Unlock. Each time you do a scenario, there's a whole pile of things that come out of an envelope, so you don't just have the room you're looking at. You have little puzzles and things, random words and numbers, and you're trying to piece them all together to solve the puzzles. And the little decoder thing is great.
Yeah, I like the clue. Like there's stuff related to some of the clues on the actual box, and it tells you whether to use it. I like the decoder keys as an idea. I like the fact it's got a little clock on it as a little. Yeah, that's just nice. It adds just a bit more to it. It's a nice. It adds something nice and makes it a bit more than just some bits of paper and stuff. I think it's a little bit more. Maybe it's the ones we've done, but I feel they're a little more family friendly. Just a touch more family friendly than some of the really extreme ones. But I think they've all been fun to do.
Yeah, they're much more standard puzzles. There's less thinking outside the box, so to speak. I would say that the hint system isn't as friendly as some of the other ones you can do. I think sometimes there's like a stack of these hints. You get like this kind of red screen filter thing, and these hints, if you put in the red screen filter, you will get a clue as to where you go. But you can't ask for hints on specific things. It basically, when you get to a certain point in the time, it says, you can use this hint. Okay, put it in. Oh no, I've already done that.
I guess that's meant to be like an actual escape room where at particular times, if you're doing bad as a group, they will have a point and go, we can give them this clue now. So it's sort of replicating that as opposed to solving a specific puzzle.
I guess the issue you're saying is if you're ahead,
it's not helping.
You might need to wait around 10 minutes before you can actually get the clue for where you're at.
Yeah. So, to some extent, I think maybe they've improved the hint system with some of the games, but this isn't a tough game. It's not like you'll need the hints. We've got out with a fairly comfortable amount of time in the ones we've done so far, and as of quite a few people in the cafe, I've not seen anyone fail yet, but everyone seems to like the challenge.
Yeah.
We've been Board Game Opinions, and that has been Escape Room, the game.
Well, that's about that for another episode of Token Punch Lunch. I want to thank you all for joining us here. We certainly appreciate the time you've taken out of your schedule to join us here and view the content that we've produced for you. I want to thank all of my contributors for doing such a great job at putting that content together. All I do is I drop it into a timeline, folks. They are the ones that do the hard work. So make sure you let them know how much you appreciate that in the comment section. Also, let us know if you have any comments. Be constructive, but of course, let us know if there's something else that we can do that might suit your fancy a little bit better. Anyway, let's go ahead and get on out of here and stop wasting some of your time and mine. Just kidding. Anyway, we're going to get out of here. Thank you guys and gals so much for joining us. We'll see you later on the flip side.
Fatality.